Hello and welcome to 4,000 and Counting, brought to you by Hurricane E-Bikes. I am Watty, and today, as promised, we will be talking about my ongoing situation with UK anti-doping. And there is only one man that was ever going to sit in the seat opposite me. It's my boy Anthony Russell from bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. How are you,
Wow,
my
you're trained now.
I'm
That's really
old at this
impressive.
shit. I'm old at this shit now, mate. It's God. I'm just looking. It's a bit stupid, like.
And
So
Hurricane, he got the ad reading and everything right at the top of the show. What a trooper he is. Nicky,
gotta
we have
get it
got to
in
stop
there, mate.
meet. We've got to stop meeting like this, mate. I
Well, I
think
wish
these
I wish we could, mate. I really wish we could. But
yeah, it's a interesting and a frustrating situation. Now, I think, like Nicky has said, I am Anthony Russell, aka Banners on the Wall. I've been lurking around the British hockey scene now for well over a decade, and Nicky and I have this ongoing relationship where something ridiculous happens in his life, and I sit down and ask him questions about it.
yeah,
And now we are here again. So we are recording this now, folks. It's the middle of May. For those of you listening on the listening or watching on the various feeds, and the caveat at the start of this is that Nicky. With everything that's happening with the situation with UK anti-doping, Nicky got in contact, as usually happens when these things happen, and said we need to go again. So we are going again. Nicky is not party to any question. I have not made him aware of anything I'm about to ask him beforehand. That is one of the things I said right at the very start of this process back in 2014. And
Jesus,
Nicky to
Jesus, we're
his
so old, mate. We're
we
so
are we
old.
are we are really
Oh
old.
God, it's so
Um,
long ago.
and Nicky to his credit has held up every end of his bargain. He never asked to see any questions. We never talk about what I'm going to ask him beforehand. This is as unedited as you're probably going to get either of us. And if you don't like swearing, you'd probably click away now.
I'll do my best to keep this one under the wraps because there might be a lot of kids watching. So I'm going to try my best to do my best to allow as many people to be able to watch this as possible. So
We'll try and behave. We'll try and behave as best as we possibly can. Now, Nicky, for people who follow the 4,000 and counting social media channels, they will be aware that at the back end of March you were suited and booted and heading back towards the centre of London from home in Basingstoke. We are now. You talked about a little bit at the time and sort of dangled the sort of carrot on the stick for people of what you were doing. You are now in a position to tell people what you were doing at the back end of March.
right, yeah, I was. So in March, I was actually at my second tribunal versus UK anti-doping. I was in central London for a basically for a tribunal hearing to go over a potential breach of my ban, which UK anti-doping brought to my attention in August 2020. Would you believe it or not? 30 plus months ago. They they basically said that I was in potential breach of my ban due to guilt by association through personal training ice hockey players. Now, obviously, we're going to get into the ins and outs of that, but the tribunal itself was due to that. So, UK Doping had offered me an 18-month ban prior to prior to this, and I said no, absolutely not. I want to go to tribunal. I want to actually have my say. The way they dealt with the entire situation was an absolute joke. And like I said, bearing in mind when all this process started, this was in August 2020. They said that I had breached the rules of my ban because I was personal training ice hockey players. Now, not specifically athletes, specifically ice hockey players. That was their issue. They never once mentioned that I trained a swimmer or a boxer or, I even brought this up in my tribunal. I was like, you didn't seem to care that I had like a martial arts guy or an American football guy or a basketball girl or a gymnast. It was specifically the hockey players that they had the issue with.
Mm.
Now, my ban stated that I was banned from playing ice hockey, coaching ice hockey. It never stated that I was banned from doing my job. They knew what my job was when I got banned. They knew at that stage that I was training ice hockey players, and I continued to do that into my ban. Now, the national governing body BOTW, I think 2011, I believe, was the NADP rule set that I got banned under, and it said that I was allowed to continue to go to the gym, etc. And nowhere in black and white did it state that I was not allowed to train ice hockey players and basically do my job, which is part of the reason why we're going to get into. I got 18 months, in the long and the short of it, but it's part of the reason it's that and not 8 years. So I'm sure I'll let you take over, mate, and you can probably dissect it, and because I could talk about it all day.
Yeah, and I think the thing as well is that you've before we get too deep into this, I think the one thing I think that we kind of need to discuss a little bit is the idea that the idea you've had to live with this, mate, and you and I are now having yet another conversation about this. So before we get too much into the heavy detail of what's happening here, how are you? Because I think the question, this is the question that's kind of weighed heavily that I was thinking about, because when you and I chatted about doing this the other day, the thing I reflected on about all of this is that over the course of the conversation we've had, we've talked about things like you've talked about having body image issues. You are in a very, very different place in your life, and actually in also as well a completely different relationship from where you were right at the back of 2014 as well. And the thing that strikes me about all of this is like how much this weighs on you, because like you say, 2020, when they send you the charge letter and say we're investigating you about all of this, and we are nearly 3 years down the track. What's this experience done to Nicky Watt the person? I suppose is the thing I want to hear before we start picking apart this rather wordy 21-page document you've sent.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, I'll be honest, mate. It was tough. I was fucking pissed off because ultimately I built up my business, and overnight I think I lost 15 clients. It's quite a lot.
Yeah,
it's quite a lot.
For a personal trainer, it is quite a few, yes.
Yeah, considering I was running about 22, 23, maybe sometimes 25. So
Nathan Anthony Ben, you need to go downstairs and not come upstairs for a minute. I told you what I was doing. I know, darling. I know you just want to talk, but Daddy and Nicky are in the middle of something.
Give us a high five, though.
Give me a high five.
Give us a wave. Give us a wave. Say hi to everybody.
You need to go downstairs now, sweetheart, and not come back upstairs until I ask you to. All right? Thank you, darling.
I love it.
I love
it. I've got all this to come. So
you do.
By the way, and do you know what this brings me back to, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of like 2020. It's like COVID. People walking in on like TV interviews and stuff. The guys on BBC News with no drawers on. Like,
at least I was going to say, at least he's dressed. Like... At least he's dressed. I think that's probably the thing we take some solace in here.
But and that takes us back to them, mate. And so this is when it was. Obviously, it was during COVID. So my theory was they were very bored. So not only did they come at me for that, but they then sent me the evidence, and I sent you the evidence at the time, I believe.
Yeah.
And so guilt by association might be the loosest terminology that you've ever heard in your life. And guilt by association, it's funny. Part of their guilt by association. So going back to the personal training thing, I tagged my brother in a Facebook post. He wasn't even in the post. It was one of them ones I was advertising my boot camp, and I tagged like 50 people. And UKAD had been like, yeah, you can't do that because it's associating your brother with fitness. I was like, okay. And then there was a picture of me and my boy Stewie Capitano playing golf. Like, he's a rec player who, by the way, I didn't know was a rec player or anything. And like when I got banned 8 years ago, we didn't even know each other then. No. We never knew each other. We became friends through fitness, actually. And then we sort of have a common theme with golf. And we go out and golf. So there'd be like a picture from my Facebook of me and him playing golf. But because he was registered with EIHA, it was classed as guilt by association. Then they had a picture of me training in my own gym on a Sunday night. I thought that was probably my favorite one. I was like, that's me. Am I not allowed to associate with me? I was like, I know I'm a bit of like, give me, myself, and Irene. Like, we've got a few bits going on in here, but give me a break. So yeah, I was stressed out. I was disappointed that they were coming after me again, and they were ultimately saying that I could potentially face an 8-year ban for breach of that. So yeah, it hit on me kind of hard, and I think the major factor was the length of time it took to get through it. Obviously, at that stage, we're going through IVF.
Yeah.
So, like a major thing. Business then obviously have to rebuild an entire business because you can't lose 15 clients overnight and
No.
then still have a business. So being self-employed, not long. We'd only been in our house like 18 months. You've got a mortgage, and then they come at you with that. You're trying to then rebuild a business, trying to build clientele back up. That was stressful, and just their whole blasé attitude with the way they dealt with it. And they'd be quick to send you letters with red text in there saying you must respond by this and that, and then they would take 3, 4, 5 months to respond to something, and just be like, oh, it's under investigation, it's under this. The whole time, like, I was represented by one lawyer initially, and then when we did the pre-trial hearing, my trial was going to end up being on a day that he couldn't do, and the judge was like, has to go ahead. So I then had to change my lawyer. I changed my lawyer, and then for whatever reason he couldn't do it, and then I was on to like my third lawyer, who I think maybe got the case like a week out from the tribunal. So, but just the whole thing was a mess. I spoke to a therapist during it a couple of times. I found that helpful, just to kind of decompress and unwind. But ultimately, like, it doesn't really matter because I wasn't going to play. So, does it really change anything? Not really. Did I want them to be able to ban me for doing my job? Absolutely not. Like, I feel a bit like aggrieved, so to speak.
Because that's the thing that kind of strikes me is that, and certainly from having read other cases that have gone through UK anti-doping, that have gone through sports resolutions, who are kind of the body that kind of deals with a lot of these sort of tribunal bits and pieces. A fair few people just kind of turn up to them and just kind of go, well, I'm not doing anything anymore, and just kind of accept the first ban and just never sort of really do anything anything about it. Are you that stubborn that you feel the need to fight this?
Fuck yeah. It's like you've never met me.
I have to ask the questions out loud because I think
I know. Some people will be new to this story, and I am that stubborn, absolutely, because ultimately I wasn't fighting just for me. I was fighting for everybody that's going to precede me. I'm not going to be the only low-level athlete in the UK that gets banned, who is a personal trainer. The UKAD are then now going to come after because they have a precedent. But prior to this, I'm not just fighting for me. You got to imagine, right, the rugby guy that plays third or fourth, fifth division is getting paid a couple of $100 a week. They're finding him doing Nandrolone, but funnily enough, none of those rugby premiership guys or national team guys, none of them are on drugs, or you can never catch any of them on drugs. Same thing you're catching like low-level cyclists or whatever it is. But chances are those guys that are at that level have jobs outside of what they do. Chances are one of those jobs is going to be a personal trainer. And it wasn't just for me, it was for kind of everybody. I thought that I had to go to tribunal, I have to stand up, and I'm going to make you fight this. I'm going to make you put something in precedent. If you're gonna do this, you're going to have to. It's going to have to go into law. Like, obviously, I didn't even know, but you texted me the other week, and you was like, my case had been brought. Where was it? Like South Africa or something? It had been brought up in court.
Yeah, no, it was in an academic paper. That had been the judgment. The judgment had been cited in an academic paper that was done in a medical journal in South Africa.
Oh, there you go. But see what I mean? So this stuff gets written down, and I wanted them to have to come on and be like, right, this is what you've done wrong, and we're going to prove to whatever. But ultimately, when they gave me like, it's not your fault, but we're going to ban you anyway because this is our grey area rule set that you broke, it kind of left a bit of taste in my mouth. But to be honest, I found out about it 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm kind of over it.
Yeah,
if I'm honest.
Because I think the thing that we should the detail that we will go into specifically here, just for people who are listening now, who will have heard bits and pieces and sort of seen bits and pieces, is that what Nikki has been given per the judgment document that's come out is that effectively Nikki's original ban was due to end on the 16th of June 2022. What they've effectively done is impose a further period of ineligibility of 18 months. So Nikki is now but that is backdated. They've started the period of ineligibility from the 17th of June 2022. Nikki's new ban will end at 23:59 on the 16th of December 2023. So Nikki will be back and eligible to play. Insert your own jokes that you may wish to make here from the 17th of December 2023. Now, I mean, to start going into some of the nitty gritty of this, Nikki, because there was a like I said, when I sat back and kind of reflected before sort of having yet another chat about you with this, and the document eventually, it's not currently in the public domain, but it will be, because all of these decisions do end up being sort of a matter of public record. When your original ban was live, it was on the UK anti-doping website to read, is no longer there, because that sanction is now no longer in place effectively. But we'll just have a quick skim of just picking up some bits and pieces. And actually, the one thing I have to immediately go back to is you were banned by the rules that were there. The 2015 World Anti-Doping Code, Article 2, Section 10, talks about what are effectively support personnel. So people who are not athletes, but people who are banned and should not be, who are support personnel who are ineligible to work with these people. So the idea being that because you were banned, folk who are registered athletes should. The argument in WADA is that they should not be able to be worked with. And you talk about guilt by association. Well, it's the types of association prohibited, and I'll read this out directly so people can get an idea of this. Some examples of the types of association which are prohibited include obtaining training, strategy, technique, nutrition, or medical advice, obtaining therapy, treatment or prescriptions, providing any bodily product for analysis, or allowing the athlete support person to serve as an agent or representative. Prohibited association need not involve any form of compensation. The other thing, of course, that was in one of your original ban letters, Nikki, was that if you are unsure, you should check. Now, according to this document, their argument is you didn't check. So on behalf of a few people that will probably read this, and I'm interested to hear your response. You're an idiot, mate. You didn't check. What were you doing?
I didn't feel the need to check. They knew when I got banned. And I think if you go into, let's go back to your first podcast, I believe in the first 3 minutes, we talk about the fact that I train ice hockey players. It was never a secret. It was all over my Facebook. They only took any sort of interest in 2020. For 6 years, I had been posting it all over Facebook. This is Joe Blogs doing this exercise. This is, I don't know, one of my clients scoring a goal at the weekend. It was never, they knew I was doing it. So the need to check for me was never there. I legitimately, they knew when I got banned that I was PT. They knew that was my career. We spoke about it right away. It was in the public domain. I believe one of the questions asked me, do the parents know? You asked me, do the parents know? And I was like, yeah, they were the first to know. So it was never a secret that I was training guys. And it was literally only during lockdown after, August 2020. So bearing in mind, my ban was June 2014. I had like 6 years worth of shit of all my clients doing stuff. It only then became an issue.
The bit that follows up in this, and it's quite a way down in the document. It's towards the end. I forget exactly which page it's on, but it's certainly towards the end of it. But they actually go into and talk about this point that you've made. The things that they sort of observe is that their argument is you were never banned from carrying out and continuing with the business, but that because the letter that you got states you're banned from coaching or assisting athletes in any other way.
What gives them the right, though? Yeah, I'm banned, but what gives you the right to say that I can't work with that? Because you're some pathetic doping organization. Fuck that. Absolutely not. That should never have even... Why does it make a difference? I was an athlete to the loosest sense of the word. I was an ice hockey player in the UK. I think there needs to be a bit of recognition on the fact that, like if you're an Olympic 400-meter runner, you probably shouldn't be going out and teaching lads 400 meters if you're banned. But if you're an Olympic 400-meter runner that's teaching lads how to squat and deadlift and shoulder press in the gym, why should you not be allowed to do that? And this is what UK anti-doping failed to They failed to differentiate, and they still haven't in any of the paperwork they've gave back to me. They've done nothing to really to, to do anything to help. They haven't proved their case. They've just said, "Oh yeah, you've done that, and this is our rules, so you're banned."
I think what I find interesting as well is actually because that bit's, and this again is towards the back end of the document, that the feeling having read this is that you've not broken the spirit of your ban, but you have broken the letter of it by their judgment.
Literally, that's
And
literally it.
And I think that's kind of, and that's probably, I
Like
think
they
as well,
accept, they're like, you haven't done any ice hockey coaching, you haven't tried to be on the ice, you haven't tried to teach them how to do slap shots, you haven't tried to do anything related to your sport, but by training them in the gym and teach them how to deadlift and bench press and do pull-ups and all that, that's me being an athlete, a support person. Now, if you want to get down to the real nitty-gritty, where does it stop? Oh, it says in that, if you go by the letter of the law, and this is going to sound really pathetic, but go by the letter of the law and it says can't talk about nutrition. Yeah. Yeah. So what if I work in Tesco's and I see a lad that comes in with a Basingstoke Town football shirt on, and I'm working around the butcher's section? I'm not a PT, but he asked me, what's better? What's more protein, chicken or beef? Me knowing the answer, because it is what I do. Am I technically supposed to turn around to that, under 17 lad with his Basingstoke Town football and say, do you know what, lad? I'm a banned athlete. I can't tell you whether you should have chicken or steak. And someone else well known to you came up with another very good point. What if, obviously, we go back to what I said about low-level athletes having secondary jobs. What if I'm a PE teacher and a school teacher, and I'm now teaching PE, and 3 of my lads and 3 of my girls, 3 of them are at, England swimming, British gymnastics, and BIHA figure skating. And then on the other side, you've got a lad that's at, Saracens, a lad that's at Reading Academy and all that. Am I no longer allowed to do my job in the classroom? Do I have to stand up and be like, or do those 6 students have to leave the classroom?
That second example is a much better point, a better argument to your point that you're trying to make, because the response I'd say to you in that front is that the issue that they have with what you've done is the fact that it's effectively in their minds, and it says so in the document, it's this idea of a continuous breach, right? If you say one thing to one person once in the context of what they're doing, you can sidestep that, because actually you may well have made a singular honest mistake, right? And you can, and like, and then it's, for the folk who are watching, and if you're if Graham keeps this in, you will have seen my 5-year-old wander in. He's one for making very honest mistakes quite on a singular basis, and you realize the issue that you've done, and then you don't, and it may not come up again for another 10, 15, 20 20 days, months, years, in fact. But certainly the argument from their side is because you have continuously done something. Yeah. The PE teacher example that you make is actually a very interesting one, and one that in the past, unfortunately, I asked questions of UK anti-doping and they do not respond, because they say that they're not allowed to comment on these things.
I asked them in person and they didn't respond because they don't have an answer to it.
You make the point there as well, and I find it interesting as well that, like we say, the real reading of this for me is that they feel that you've broken the spirit of this. You've broken the letter rather than the spirit. And looking at the back end of the document, to touch on a point that you made here, there's a line in here. He was providing training that had some direct or indirect benefits to ice hockey players. That he was training ice hockey players is no surprise. That is the sport in which he has made his reputation and is known. Below that, then, is just below that is a bunch of the some of the mitigating factors into what's happened here, and the idea and we will I'll read these out for the purposes of people who haven't had the opportunity to read this. And probably one of the things that sort of that helped in your case was the fact that, like you say, because the training that you gave people was very very fitness specific rather than what happened here. So the list of sort of the mitigating factors they list here: the training was not conducted on ice. The specific ice hockey training was very limited. that you'd originally, and we've talked about this before, you'd originally planned to do some sort of training camp, realized the problem you were probably going to get yourself and others into, and you cancelled that. They list that as well. The panel was told and accepted the respondent stopped providing such training in 2020 when he was alerted it might be a breach of the prohibition on participation. The respondent cooperated with the investigation. The panel accepts he did not know and did not intend to breach the violation. The panel also has regard to the level at which the athletes were competing. They were not international Olympic athletes training for prestigious competitions or winning medals. So you've gotten off with an 18-month ban because they've given you an 18-month ban because effectively they said you've not paid attention to the rules closely enough. But when you suddenly you've done enough to sidestep doing it on a massive thing, and also effectively because you weren't training people immediately going to the Olympics, that and you've bothered to kind of cooperate with the investigation. You've not run away from it. It feels like I say, there's a real line here about how much they feel the needs to fight the fact that you've broken the rule, rather than, but they immediately also acknowledge the limit of the scope of it, which is interesting as well, because you think some of the younger athletes that you have are on the verge of representing Great Britain internationally. And the thing
that statement you read out was from the main QC, the main judge that was presided over the case. And when he found out what, like Stewie Capitano playing for the Basingstoke Buccaneers, and Jack Stanton playing for, I think at the time it was Solent Devils 2, or it might have even been his dad's other rec team. Like, they weren't talking about me having Kirky and John O'Phillips and Cade Nielsen. They weren't talking about me having those guys, and they weren't talking about me being like in the ice rink specifically training, Basingstoke under 18s ready for the next game, or getting fitter and stronger or whatever for the season. They were talking about players that were coming to me for fitness related.
Yeah.
And I'm not being funny. If you were a parent in the Basingstoke area whose child played ice hockey and you were like, I need them to go see a personal trainer. Now, who are you going to see? You're going to go and see me, because you could end up with any old Tom, Dick and Harry. It doesn't take much to become a personal trainer. The industry's a joke. So I'm glad they chose me, because at least they got a good coach. You went to Guildford, you trained with Lidsey, you went to Tomo, you lived in Bracknell, you went to Tomo. It made sense. Like it was never anything sinister, and it was literally training to make these guys and girls better, like just better humans, better athletes, bigger, stronger, faster, whatever it may be. Whatever their goal was. Some of them it was just confidence. Some of them it was just having someone that wasn't their mum and dad, that 14, 15, 16, they could come in and shoot shit for an hour and leave feeling good. They got some shit going on at school. Their GCSEs were a bit shit, or bird problems, lad troubles for the girls, whatever it was. They would always come in and have someone to talk to. They trusted me, and they knew it would never go any further. And there was all these sort of relationships. And relationships, you talked about like the ongoing breach. I had fucking clients for 5 years, 6 years that they took off. Like, you're talking massive relationships and being someone's confidant, essentially, as a PT. That is a lot of what you are. When you've done that for 6 years and someone no longer has that, there's an ongoing impact which UKAD Open couldn't give a shit about.
I think the thing, like I say, the thing that I struggle on, and I think this probably makes sense in your mind because you're living it. But the thing that I don't necessarily understand here as an outsider, right, is that you've gone through the entire rigmarole, right, of fighting this process, and you've said there that and you mentioned just then as you were talking the fact that you are training with people who are athletes. That is specifically something that your ban says you are not supposed to do. But at the same time,
I'm going by athletes, what they call athletes.
Yeah. But let me finish this point, because I'm interested to say it, because like I said, I'm just trying to unpick the bit in your mind that I don't get because I'm not in your shoes. You have no immediate designs, as far as I'm aware, to go back and play ice hockey at this age. You and I are involved in the world of ice hockey in a bunch of different ways. Yours different to mine, although we now do a very similar thing, right? And if you were wanting to go back and play, I would kind of understand more of you fighting it, because you're training athletes in the very, very broad sense. But from a personal trainer perspective, that's literally your job. And if your connection, and like you say, you want these, whether it's, you know, Basingstoke or even a little bit further afield, right? You can spread your net as wide as you need to. But if you're training hockey players, ultimately, down to the letter, that's breaching the ban that they gave you. But if you're not interested in playing hockey, it doesn't matter.
Which it never said in the rule set in 2011.
But the point still stands, is that the wording the wording they use says that you've done it. But if you're not interested in playing hockey again, it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, that falls into the people that are coming to you to know what they're doing. You as a business person, as an entity providing personal training as a service, it's not up to you, if you're not interested in doing anything with your ban, in some ways, they're the people who need to be careful, not you. So if they come to you and they're going to pay you to do your job, you should do your job. But by the same token, you're not interested in playing again. The ban is effectively moot. But you're going and fighting a ban that ultimately doesn't affect you. And I think that's the thing I'm struggling a little bit to try and unpick.
It could affect me. Of course, it could affect me. It could. People who don't see this episode but hear about it through the grapevine hear that I got another ban. Now, they might not know the ins and outs of the case, but they might never send their lad to work with me or their lass to work with me because they heard I got a second drug ban. They might not fuck all about it, but it could have an ongoing effect on my business. Absolutely, of course it could. Well, to be honest, I haven't really been training on hockey players for the last couple of years, and it is what it is. But ultimately, that's what I enjoy doing. Of course, I enjoy doing that. They're kids and, you know, young adults that are going through what I went through, and what I loved at their age was having a coach off the ice that knew what they were talking about. Because there's nothing worse than a PT that doesn't know what they're talking about, and that you can't engage with, and you can't work with, and you can't banter with, and it's never played, so they don't know. Whereas I offer that, and I don't know. I think in anybody that cares to read it, go through and read their rules. A lot of their text is very, very grey and broad and non-specific. And in fact, I think I sent you my last chat from my solicitor. He pretty much says as much. He was like, "That's their game plan, mate. Like, they have this so they can go, oh, this is a breach. That's a breach." And it can work in their favor. It's very rarely going to work against them. To be honest, actually, after I left that place on the tribunal, I thought I'd won. 100%. I thought I'd done enough on the day. The three judges liked what I had to say. They seemed to on the day. I maybe upset them once. But as a rule, I thought I handled it very well. They were supposed to have 45 minutes to question me. She was questioning me for like almost an hour and a half. I didn't skip a beat once. Even the judge came in and he was like, "Mr. Gowan, you've been questioning Mr. Watt for an hour and 20 minutes now. Do you have a plan on like stopping?" Like, he was like, "You had 45 minutes scheduled." So the way it went on the day, I thought I did like exceptionally well. Same when I had the interview. The interview was supposed to take an hour. This is going back to, so when did I say it was August 2020? August 2020. So the interview
August
was supposed to take place,
yeah.
And then went on to April 21. So it took them 8 months to then get on and actually do anything. So at this point, they haven't forced and said that I've actually done anything, but I've had to stop training all these people. So at this point, there's no proof or no anything. You're just like, you have to stop training. So it took 8 months to get to that stage. The interview was supposed to be an hour. It's 2.5 hours. I think I sent you the transcript for that. I did very well in that interview. I thought I held my own in any time that they questioned me. And why fight them? Because they've tried to get involved in my life for the last 10 years. And for want of a better word, fuck them. Like, honestly, like I've had stupid shit. Let's go. Obviously, they knew I was going through IVF, and it's very stressful. And I even stated in, like letters to them, look, while we're doing this, while Soph's been medicated, You need to back the fuck off and leave me alone. Like, we'll do this when we do it. And stupid stuff like it then went on for ages and ages and ages. Obviously, like I keep going back to August 2020, April 2021. What day did they let me know that I was banned? And they can pretend that they don't follow my social media, but every single piece of evidence in the evidence file is screenshots from my social media. So we know they're on my social media. They've got a burner account, you know, probably some lass with some good tits. Let's face it, it's probably a burner account, and they're on all my social media. I know they are. The day they let me know that my ban came 15 minutes after I posted the picture of me taking Brody out of the hospital, I basically messaged back. I was like, "Are you taking the piss out of me? You've just basically watched me take my boy." Because I know you've got, and I put it in the emails. I know you watch me on social media. I know you just watched me walk out of hospital with my boy, and now you find it acceptable for you to send me this today. I checked my computer 10 minutes later, they deleted the email. But obviously, I'm on Google. It says the contact has deleted the email. So I've got screenshots of that. And then about a week later, I get the exact same email saying, "By the way, you've been banned." And I was like, "Are you taking the piss out of me?" Right. So I don't know. It's always felt very personal. It's always felt very vindictive. And I wasn't just going to take it lying down. Yeah, I could have took an 18-month ban. I could have took an 18-month ban, I don't know, 9 months ago, 10 months ago. Ultimately, it wouldn't have made a difference because they would have just started it from June anyway. It would have made no difference. So whether I went and fought it or not, at least this way, I've got to have my say.
The thing that strikes me is 2 points to pick up on there. Is that one, the grey area that you talk about in their legislation, and this is like I say, I'm trying to see what is the opposite side of this argument, because it would be, and people will say that there is a conflict of interest of you and me doing these kind of chats, because you and I have known each other now for a very, very long time. So I always try my best in these things to try and unpick the thoughts in your head, to kind of see what you say when I try to also unpick the other side of the argument. The grey area in that legislation, Nikki, will be because they want to shift the onus of the responsibility of what happens here onto the athlete. Now, irrespective of your playing status, the rules will be there to force the athlete to take real responsibility for their decisions they make around these areas of playing, whether it's the lowest level
But that's if
of
you
doing
still
bits and
consider
pieces.
yourself an athlete, and this is other
Yeah,
things they're not
well, and
considering.
that for you as an individual, that's the point. But and that is a legitimate point. And it's a point you maintain the entire time. They banned you right at a point where you were saying, "I'm taking a year off, and I'm
Yeah.
genuinely not that fussed." But the rules are for everybody, right? And they will argue that the grayness there is to shift the onus onto the athlete to take responsibility for their decisions.
Why didn't
and
they
to
care
work.
for 6 years though? Why only during COVID, when they literally had no sporting events to go test? Why was that the only time that
Which
they actually
follows
showed any interest?
which follows me on to the second point in this. And I'm not going to try and step inside the heads of the people doing this, because you're
Yeah, good luck with that.
yeah. And but also as well, you've got your impression of why they did what they did, and I'm not here to disavow you of that. But if I'm in their position and I've got a list of athletes who are banned, the one thing I would, if I was in their shoes doing their job, the one thing I would be doing once a year, at least once a year, is checking you are maintaining the status of your ban and you weren't getting involved. And you mentioned about what's happened and the day you've taken your son out of hospital, and I'm not going to start digging around in that, because that's a really emotive topic for you, and I don't think that serves you and I any purpose in this conversation. But if I'm doing their job and I've got a list of 5, 10, 15, if we say there's 20 people, if you look on UK Anti-Doping's website right now, there's 2 pages, and I think it must take up about like 30 people max, right, who are on that list as being banned from whatever, for whatever reason, right?
Which
the
is
one thing I'd be
pathetic in
doing,
itself.
but the one thing I'd be doing, because it's part of UK Anti-Doping's purview, it's part of their job to do, is not just to enforce the rules and go through that process and ban people, but also to check that they're maintaining the status of their ban. The fact that they're looking shouldn't be a surprise.
Go further, go faster, get fitter with Hurricane e-bikes. The only UK company to offer a lifetime warranty covering battery, LCD screen, motor and all components. No servicing costs, no need to buy, no interest costs, no long-term agreement, no maintenance costs, no worries, lifetime warranty. How it works: you select your bike, you add accessories, you confirm details, and it's on its way. And don't forget to tell them that you were sent by 4,000 and counting. So go to www.hurricane.bike and you can find more information there.
Don't forget, it's Hurricane with an E. Check them out right now.
And like Nikki has said, and this is true, folks, Nikki has provided me with some of the evidence that they gave to him to say, we think that you are breaching your ban, and here is the reason why. And I think the thing, and like I say, some of the bits are on there. First response from me was, but that's his brother, and they're working out together in their home gym. And you and I, because we have the bias of recency and knowledge, right? You talking to Ryan in your home gym when you are a PT by profession, and you and your brother have probably worked out at least once or twice a week since you were probably like 11 or 12, is not a huge surprise to you or me. But if I'm in their shoes and my job is to check, right, this person is on my list of banned athletes, we're going to do our cursory yearly check just to maintain that they are upholding their ban and they're not doing anything they should do. Why is he working out in a gym with somebody?
Ryan's never seen the inside of a gym in his life.
Well, whether Ryan or not thinks Jim is the man from the chip shop is a discussion
most definitely. Yeah.
Is a discussion for another time. But the point still stands that I get why they've done it. And what I find interesting is that you're shocked by it.
Mate,
why
if
are you
Ryan
shocked?
was in the gym, I can understand. He wasn't. It was literally I shared my Popley boot camp poster. And nothing to do with Ryan, but all at the top, and I tagged 50 people in it. And it was like, I tagged all the lot that come to the boot camp, then maybe their husband and wives, and then my mum and dad, and my brother and his missus at the time. And that was the only thing. That was the whole association with Ryan. There was no pictures of me and Ryan. It was a screenshot of him being tagged in me sharing my boot camp poster. Now, if my brother's not allowed to promote my business because I was a banned athlete 8 years ago, piss off.
But the wider premise that they're doing it can't be a surprise, mate.
It was a surprise, really, because like I said, it wasn't like I put one post on every 20 and kind of slipped in the fact that I trained hockey players. It was never a secret. They knew it was all out there. I genuinely thought I was just going to carry on doing what I was doing. My band was going to finish, and that would have been the end of it. Like I was not going on the ice coaching. I wasn't really doing anything involved with hockey other than the podcast in the later years of my band. And I think that was only 2019 it started. My band by this point had gone to August 2020. And I'd even talked on the podcast prior to that, you should check out, my little lad. He trains with me a couple of times a week. He plays for Bainstow 18s. He might be a player, like whatever. I talked about it on the pod. It was never anything secret. Like I really. And I still, to this day, I don't see what difference it makes in the grand scheme of things for them. You just touched on, they have 30 banned athletes total. That is a piss take of how many tests they do, how many athletes we have registered in the UK, the lack of testing at the highest level, the fact that there's only 30 people banned and they're having to come back after guys like me should tell you that they're not doing their job properly. There is no way. The amount of boxing fights, the amount of athletics meets, the amount of tennis matches, the amount of table tennis matches, the amount of swim meets, fucking gymnastics, basketball, football. How many? There's 8-10 tiers of football. Are you telling me none of these guys are on drugs? Getting ripped. Like, we know just percentages. Percentages say a good chunk of them of either recreational. Like Ben Solder got less of a ban for me for doing cocaine than I did for giving lads a couple of PT sessions. Go figure. Like, how does that work? How does that make sense? It doesn't make sense.
The argument, the other side of that will be this is the culture that has been created by having robust anti-doping procedures, because a lot of people do sport, but not to the level where they're registered with a national body that's covered by WADA's code. And actually, the argument from UK anti-doping will be that they've created a culture amongst sport where doping is so disincentivized that it's actually a good thing, and there's so few people because so few people want to try it. Now, I think there's a really big
disagree.
Yeah, but like I said,
I know high-level athletes, mate, and they're all on drugs. Not ice hockey players in this country. I'm talking, like proper athletes.
For the sake of lawyers, allegedly.
Allegedly. Well, I didn't name drop anybody. I didn't name drop anybody. But let's face it, we know it goes on. It's not a secret. Anybody just has to go and watch Icarus to see how widespread and covered up it is. To see Team GB getting, little test boosters sent down to the velodrome and it getting all covered up. To see Dillian White lose a drug ban, Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, who'd you like?
Yes.
Just name the people. There's all been things swept under the rug. Rio getting like 50 weeks of missing a test, as opposed to getting caught and ending up getting screwed. There's a lot of weird things that goes on with that organization, and it never goes on with the guys that don't have any money. It only seems to go on against the guys that have a lot of money. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so.
I mean, you and I have talked before about the fact that you felt that somebody had pushed you in the direction of UK anti-doping in the beginning.
I don't know who, still.
As it were. But at this stage, given what you've just said, are we in a position where it's going to happen again?
No.
Do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I'd be very surprised if they wasted any more resources on me. Like, what's the next step? What you're trying to achieve? Like, nobody's going to give a shit. Even the people that watch this in the ice hockey world, they're going to go, "What a joke," and they're going to move on with their lives, and it's going to be yesterday's chip paper before you know it. The wide world of doping. There is a 400-meter runner over at Bainstoke track right now going, "Oh, fuck me. Did you see? They banned this lad because he was banned and then he's trained a personal training people in his garage." They're not going to care. Do you think the next lad that's trying to get ready for the Tour de France in England is going to care that UK? They're not going to give a shit. It's not going to put them, like you said, oh, like everyone's so worried because they do such a good job. They're going to look at this and go, "Wow, that's why I didn't get tested that week. I wondered why I didn't get tested that week. Cheers, bro. Thanks very much." They were up at this old school's lad's ban at his gaff, trying to cause him some shit, as opposed to testing me when I've got a triathlon in 2 weeks or whatever it was. Look, I really don't think it's going to bother anybody. It's a weird thing.
Less so about you, but I mean more in terms of, is there?
If I was a Premier League footballer, though, do you understand like the difference it would make? If I was a Premier League footballer that did it and then started out as a coach, and I was banned, never going to go back playing football, wanted to give back, I wanted to do something. Let's say I'd played at, I don't know, a good club, let's say Arsenal or something like that. So I'd be well known within the UK, whether it be in the football world or just, for celebrity world, whatever. If you play for Arsenal, chances are a lot of people are going to know who you are. So if I then got banned playing for Arsenal, everyone would know about it because it'd be all over the Sun, it'd be all over the News of the World, it'd be all over the tabloids, it'd be all over every talk sport, every radio station. It would. If I then got banned again for doing it, it would again be across all of these platforms. So for UKAD's point of view,
made it as far as the Andover example.
You know what I mean? So UKAD then would get the benefit of this secondary ban and this widespread thing of, look, everybody that's banned, you better watch out, because if you don't follow your ban to the letter of the law, you're going to get. Nobody's going to hear about it. Nobody's even banned. I take it maybe a couple of the guys that get the initial bans, they might check the website for a month or two, like I did. Who else is getting banned? What else is going on? But as you go into like month 4, month 5, year 1, year 2, I didn't check back on there until we were having a conversation a few years later. Like, no one really knows. No one really cares unless you're a big name, and I'm not a big name, so I don't get the benefit from them. Or essentially, for all intents and purposes, they've banned me playing ice hockey from September until December. So all of this that's gone on from August in 2020 is boiled down to me being banned for about 12 weeks, maybe 14, 16 weeks, whatever it is. I'm not a math guy, but it's not a long time. What was the fucking point?
I think the point obviously from their perspective will be, well, what is their job? It's literally the very, very purpose of their existence.
Their job is to catch people who don't, which they do. And they don't seem to be catching anyone anymore. And it's not because people aren't taking breaks.
To try and return sort of my question, because I think you've misinterpreted me slightly, and I think you think that I'm talking about you specifically, and I'm talking about
generalization.
Yeah, and I think what I'm interested to see is that, because you obviously, for whatever reason, they came to you and they came to your door, and the thing and you mentioned about the fact that you are very much of the belief that people are doing bits and pieces, maybe and it's on a big scale of levels, effectively, right? Whether it's a couple of joints on a Friday night after a hard week at work, to somebody who is actively
cycling,
doing something and trying to circumvent the rules to gain a competitive edge. In ice hockey, because that is our sport, and admitted, whatever both of our involvements are in it right now, we're both very much in it. Is there another you coming down the pipeline that's going to find themselves in this situation, do you think?
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Because that's the thing I'm interested by. And
well, I'm just another Jeremy Domish. I'm just another Adam Greener. I'm just another Jason Rushton. I'm just another guy who got banned before me, like whoever it was. Like,
because you mentioned about Ben Solder and Ben.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And Ben, obviously what happened with him, very, very short in terms of his period of suspension. To the point and DeLuca effectively sidestepping his ban by then going and playing in a non WADA recognized recognized league back in North America. But I meant more on the scale, because like for the obvious mistake that Ben Solder made, and it happened and it's there and you can't avoid it, he didn't get 8 years, Nicky. And the thing I'm interested in is and I don't think there's many people who are, yours was a sequence of events that kind of compounded.
Exactly. And
with hindsight, you and I aren't even having our initial conversation, because with hindsight, you might have only got 4, you might have even got less if something had happened. Yeah. But I'm interested, and even if we don't take 8 years, because an initial ban, a regular ban for a lot of these things is either 2 or 4, right?
Yeah.
Is there another person coming down the pipeline that's going to end up in that situation?
Well,
because
let me answer this 2 ways. Yes, because laws of averages, right?
Yeah.
And no, because they don't fucking test anybody. In order for them to catch ice hockey players, they have to start testing ice hockey players, and not 3 weeks before GB go to the World Championships. You rock up at Coventry, you test them when they play fucking Hungary, you test them when they play Latvia, you then test them 5 times in Division 1A, and at the end of the year you go, oh, they did 46 tests. But what you realize, those 46 tests were 20 guys over a 10-day period when they're away representing the national team. You need to be testing guys on a Monday every week for the entire season. You want to test? You want to catch some people on drugs? Test them on a Monday. It's no secret. You come on, like, don't be daft. If they really wanted to catch people doing drugs, they would catch people doing drugs. I don't believe that they want to really catch people doing drugs.
I mean, that's quite a strong claim to make.
Well, we just saw with DeLuca. How many DeLucas are out there that came back from America that had all been smoking weed or whatever in September? You're telling me if they didn't test all the imports that came in September, all the guys that have been smoking legal bud and everything back at home, and this is just using cannabis. This isn't saying the guys that were running tests or something during the off season. They just use cannabis. What, you're saying DeLuca was the only guy? Come on. You got to be testing people. Go back, and the numbers of tests since my ban in 2014, there were seasons with zero.
Not astronomically high.
Well,
I was just double checking very quickly as to when, as I was just double checking as we were talking about Ben Solder and His test was the
At the
30th
end
of
of the
March,
season, it was the
2022.
end
Yeah.
of the season. He was injured, I believe. He went on a night out with the boys, and he wasn't even playing, I don't think. So you can get why he maybe let his hair down a little bit. But it's right at the end of that season. They'll rock up and maybe get the playoffs. But at that stage, two teams in the league aren't even at the playoffs. And then if they only come to say, the last month of the season, the last 2 months of the season,
Yeah.
They,
30th of March 2022 was when Ben Solder was tested following a game between the Manchester Storm and the Sheffield Steelers. But yeah, and I think that's the strange thing, isn't it? Is we certainly have not heard of. I'm trying to think of the last person from the second tier level who's been tested in the way that you have, because Domish was post a game, DeLuca was post a game, Solder post a game, and you had a bloke knocking at your door at 6 o'clock in the morning.
But then, like 40 guys in the EPL did that year.
Yeah,
they were rocking up at houses all over the place.
Is that bell going to start tolling for the National League?
I don't see why it wouldn't. But listening to those people talk, when they talk, and they have no reference point about ice hockey. They have no clue.
And I think that's
they might
one of the
think
things
that we're
struggles
in
on a national conversation with this.
They might think we're in the fucking Stanley Cup. Their only recognition. They might have seen, New York Rangers in an episode of Friends or something. Like that's their knowledge of ice hockey. So I don't think they have any idea of the tiers of the structure. And actually, when I laid it out and I told the judge, this is what the elite league's like, and this is what the National League's like, and then this is what this, and kind of is like a bit like, oh, just a bit disheartened. It's like, oh, it's like, yeah, I don't know where you think we are. I don't know what you think we're doing, but we're just a bunch of guys, most of them self-employed, that it's a bit of fun. They do it as a little small secondary income. No one's trying to get juiced to get jacked to make extra money or anything like that. It's not going on. What they might catch is guys recreationally using, and that shouldn't be a bad thing. So
it's I think that, like I say, it's interesting because I've now read 3 of these documents when it comes to you.
3 more than me, mate.
Yeah. This one feels so much more matter of fact than the other 2. And I think I find it very interesting. And I think there's something to be said in the way that there feels like there's a bit of an annoyance from the panel about how long it's taken to get to this point.
Yeah, there was.
It kind of comes out.
He makes it. So when we're doing the initial talking, and he goes, "Oh, we'll be dealing with this, and the outcome will be within 3 weeks." I was like, "Oh, that's a nice change of pace." He goes, "Yes, Mr. Watt. Unlike UK anti-doping, I like to deal with things swiftly, briefly, and correctly." Something along those lines, and I was like, "Ooh, shots fired!" It felt very you taking the piss. He was well aware that the fact that this had dragged on for so long was unfair.
Which begs the question, Nikki, because as we kind of get to the end of the things, I feel that we kind of need to talk about here. We're talking about this because you have chosen not to appeal this.
Yeah, I'm not going to appeal it.
So the big question then sits there in my head of what now?
Nothing. Nothing, mate.
Are we letting this die? Are we trying to let people know?
This is it for me. This is the last time we do this. This is the last time. Hopefully, they fucking come after me. And again, there's no intention of me planning on playing right now. I've made no secret of it. I would love the Baines for a head coach's job. There is no ice rink in Basingstoke that we can use. So right now, it's irrelevant. That job's not even on the table because they're not in the team in the league. Would I like to be involved again in the future? Yes, most certainly. Playing? No. It doesn't seem anything that I want to do. I'm really enjoying doing the podcasting, and I don't really want to get anything to get in the way of that. 4,000 Encounters arguably up there with the top UK podcasts every week. And we're starting to give some of these bigger boys a bit of a run for their money every now and again, which is nice. We've got sponsors on board. We've got plans to kind of do a bit of a 4,000 count and travel thing. So we're going to be going and checking out a game in the DEL, maybe Mannheim, Berlin. We're going to go and check out a game in Bern. We're going to go and check out a game in Stockholm. We're going to go to Finland. We're going to go to fucking Riga. There's plans for 4,000 accounting to expand our YouTube content. And I don't see how
posting a video every 5 minutes, mate. You could have fooled me. You're expanding it now.
And that's it. And we're trying to expand that and try to get into the more of the YouTube market as well as the podcast market. And ultimately, that takes a lot of time. So the involvement with hockey right now for myself, this is a perfect amount. Obviously, I'm a new dad as well. I've got a business as well. So it's, as it stands, nothing changes, mate. The only thing that changes, which I'm kind of a little bit pissed off about, is I probably would have went back in September and volunteered to coach 10 or 12 or something. So all they've done is push that down the road a little bit, and another bunch of kids have to wait another 5 months to get decent coaching.
What's the message to the boys? What's the message to the boys? Is that what do we learn from this, right? Because there's some kids that you were coaching when all of this kicked off, who are now adults. There are now, there's a generation of kids at Basingstoke that you and conference. Not that conference is a thing now, but you know what I mean. But what is the lesson? Well, if this is genuinely the end, and you and I will only ever get to have conversations about the National League and Solway and
nice,
import levels going up and down. If this is the end of these sets of conversations that you and I have had dating back the better part of a decade, what's the lesson to the boys coming behind you? What do we say to them? What is the caution? What is the too long didn't read version of this for people? What do they need to learn from what you've been through here?
Careful, be cautious. Take charge of yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you. You've got to weigh up your options. Does the risk outweigh the benefit? Does the benefit outweigh the risk? And you got to ask yourself these questions, because you find yourself in my shoes. It's not going to be easy for you. It's going to be rough. I mean, a lot weaker person could have fucking crumpled up like a red hot Mars bar over the last 10 years. So, I mean, I wouldn't wish like this situation upon anybody. It's a long drawn out process. And unless you got a ton of money, there's not really a lot you can do about it. So I would just say, be careful what you do, be careful what you put in your bodies. And I think that is much the same as what we said the first time, like that doesn't change. You've never been like an advocate of people jumping on drugs or anything like that. It's nothing with the case. Lads should just definitely be careful, especially in the summers. Will UK anti-doping become back on the scene? I imagine they will. And hey, it might not even be next year, but it might be the year after. And you think, that's another year. It's been 4 years now since they come. It's been 5 years now since they come. And then boom, there they fucking are. On your door at 6 o'clock in the morning, knocking and getting your missus out of bed while the kids are running riot or whatever it is. And you could find yourself in a long, dark road. And nobody wants that. And if you were to find yourself in that situation, then if you do get banned, maybe check in when you can every now and again, and make sure that your paperwork matches their paperwork. But as I said, to me, nothing changes. It's just another day, and we go again. Who knows what December brings? Who knows why I am at that stage of my life? It's still another 7 months. I've always liked the idea of being able to do a lap at the end of the game with Brody. Who knows? Could I suit up for the Buffalo if there's still a rink in Basingstoke? There's maybe a 0.1% chance of that happening. But nah, in all seriousness, just keep doing the podcast, do these charity events. Shout out charity game Saturday 5th of August in Slough. If you haven't bought your tickets, ticketlab.co.uk/4,000 counting. Keep doing those things, and you know what it's like when you do one of these podcasts, man. It takes up a lot of your time, especially the volume of the interviews we're getting out at the moment. And that's only going to continue. And then obviously we add this European stuff into the mix, and it's going to be a busy 12 months with 4,000 accounting with myself and that.
As we end then what has been quite a substantial chunk of our involvement in this, I think the message I would say is, I think you and I think you know full well there are certain bits of this where I have not necessarily agreed with everything that you have done, but I think that you know that I've always tried to come at this fairly and try not to judge you for the actions that you've made, because you and I are very different people, and we do not do things in a very, very similar way. We are opposite sides of the coin on a lot of the way that we approach a few bits and pieces. But certainly I think the thing I would put into the public forum on this is that I'd say thank you for your trust in dealing with this, because I think
anyone else do it, mate.
But I think you and I have walked a very interesting, very long road over the time, and I think it's interesting, and it's nice to be able to kind of shut the book, I think, on this, because we and like I say, we are very, very different people, but I think we have found a way to document this part of your life, maybe not in the best, maybe it's not the best of ways, and maybe I think there are people who think that there are questions that you should have answered better and that I should have asked better, but it feels nice now that we know, and you are set in what you're doing, and I am set in what I'm doing, albeit not 100% given what's happened in Basingstoke this year, but that we can kind of put this that our paths are not going to 100% diverge, because we still operate in the very sort of in the similar sphere. But there was a night a long time ago where you went to bed and then you woke up in the morning and your life changed forever, and it wasn't for the best of reasons. May you and I close the book on this, and those nights only be for good reasons going forward, mate. I think that's
absolutely, mate. Hey, there's plenty of positives have happened since that day in 2014, and that's what I tend to reflect on, and I look at the good things that have happened since then. Not only personal life, getting married, having kids, getting a house, and all that sort of stuff, but starting a podcast, we joked about it, would we do it, and it then went on to be all right, and we then went on to be like near the top, and we're getting good interviews. And good things have happened. We've had great charity events. We've been fortunate enough to be able to help like Ross Bowers. We've been able to help Pisey's boy, shit like that. That we've never been able to do without this platform. And had I still been playing, maybe we wouldn't have got to do that. So have that relationship with Zooms, be able to organise like the Rays of Sunshine Day with him up with the Glasgow Clan and Manchester Storm up in Scotland. Go up there and surprise him. That's one of the coolest things that I've ever got to do. Would I got to do all that if I was still playing? Probably not. Would I get to have my say on what's going on right now if I was still playing? Absolutely not, because I'd be at social media bans every week. But it's there's been plenty of positives, mate.
And with that, we end it. We say goodbye to like I say, to what has been 3 very long, very in-depth discussions. If you like what I've done, bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, banners OTW on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well now. Wednesday nights during the season, the What's Current stream, all 5 divisions of the NIHL structure. We go top to tail, left to right, up and down. We are back. It's the 13th as we're talking today. We are back this coming Wednesday for our May off-season stream, where we'll talk about a bunch of different things because stuff has happened. Whatever will we talk about? Cough, Solway, cough.
Just Mac ruining everybody's lives right now with his constant Twitter feed.
And then me. I've been told off by an NHL owner this week for something I put out about it as well, so it's fine.
Oh, did you really? Did you get a little wrist slap?
I did, but I'll tell you about that later. But either way, for those of you, of course, you're on 4,000 and counting, so you know where those bits and pieces are. Nikki is going to be causing a few headaches, and I probably will be over the next couple of years. Thank you for taking the time. 4,000 and counting on all your various platforms, banners on the wall, wherever you find us as well. Stay safe, everybody. So long till next time.
Peace.